24 cities, working together, accomplishing more than any of us could alone. Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro, the nation's only regional government elected by the people. Planning for the future, preserving what we love. Let's keep our region thriving for decades to come.
I'm Laura Lepley, a Metro Park Ranger. Here at Oxbow Park, safety is our #1 priority, not only for our guests, but for our staff members. I'm at the Welcome Center and you're at the Regional Center. The council chambers are located on the 3rd floor. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the stairway to the 2nd floor, exit through the main entrance by the reception desk, and gather in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the reception desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you, and come visit us at Oxbow Park.
Good morning, and I'd like to call the Metro Council business meeting of October 30th to order. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Counselor Lewis. Present. Counselor Gonzalez.
Present.
Counselor Wong.
Present.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Present.
Counselor Nolan.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Counselor Simpson.
Present. Good morning.
And Council President Peterson.
Here, thank you. Colleagues, I'm sorry I can't be there for the council meeting today, but I'm joining you briefly so that we can give some direction to staff in response to the emergency need facing our community, and specifically our most vulnerable neighbors before we launch into our agenda. As we know, all local budgets are currently strained, and Metro is no exception. We continue to have to do more to address critical needs with insufficient partnership from the federal government. On November 1st, federal funding for SNAP benefits will be gone. Our partner jurisdictions, the state and counties, are moving funds to be able to backfill what they can in this emergency. Individuals and nonprofits are also finding ways to step up during this crisis. With your agreement today, through simple head nods, I'd like to request on the record that COO Madrigal come back to Metro Council Tuesday, November 4th with a package to deliver Metro funds for immediate food security needs. I trust our team to propose an appropriate yet aggressive amount based on the types of funds we have available. But from the information I currently have, our aim should be a package of up to $500,000. I expect the package to be part of a strategy of collaboration with our state, local government, and nonprofit partners, including regional food pantries. Colleagues, we do not have to take formal action at this moment, but I'd like to just ask for head nods from you indicating support for this direction. Councillor Wong, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. And I'm really feeling the way to this moment as we all are. And I would hope for all due haste. And, as you consider this allocation, I'd really like for us to think about how we can prioritize culturally specific foods. I know that's a real need. And a lot of our, larger food banks aren't able to access that. So how do we work with culturally specific partners to make sure, community members have the food that's appropriate for them? I've gotten a lot of requests for halal food, for example. So I'd like us to be mindful about how we can make up for lack of investment in certain areas of our funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That's a good suggestion. And I know we've had other suggestions that we will include. But I believe I saw head nods of everybody. So with that, Melissa, do you have anything else to add? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Hello.
Testing, okay. Yes, President Peterson, thank you for that. Direction is clear and we will come back to council with the details.
Thank you so much. I just want to also thank our COO and our attorney for finding a way through, along with our interim director, Liam Frost. It's been a quick turnaround, and I much appreciate all the hard work. And with that, I'll hand the meeting back over to our Deputy Council President Simpson to do the consent agenda and welcome our guests and other things. I just want to say thank you to Tracy Lowe for being there today. And I'm sorry to miss it, but I do have to deal with some family issues. So we'll see you on the other side.
All right, thank you, President Peterson. And thank you, councilors, for that direction. Moving on to our next agenda topic, Native American Heritage Month. Councilors, staff, and guests, Native American Heritage Month is observed annually each November, all month long. As you may recall, Metro has observed Native Heritage Month for many, many years with support from our Tribal Affairs Program, Indigenous Community Liaisons, and the Native Staff Affinity Group. Metro's observation of Native American Heritage Month kicks off officially next week with the Tuesday coffee hour with Native community partners, featuring some local Indigenous vendors and blanket and educational display that will be in our Metro Regional MRC lobby all month long. The Tribal Affairs Program is also hosting 4 trainings available to staff and leadership this month that I encourage everyone to attend. I hope everyone can make it to the coffee hour and will take time to learn with the resources that will be up in the lobby. Thank you to the Native Staff Affinity Group and Metro Facilities team for making this happen. Native American Heritage Month provides an opportunity to recognize the diverse cultures, achievements, and contributions of tribes and urban Indigenous communities in our region and society, while not forgetting Oregon and the United States' past transgressions, injustices, acts of violence, thefts of lands, and genocidal policies. We encourage other businesses, organizations, public institutions, community members to also recognize National Native American Heritage Month and to celebrate the tribal nations and Indigenous peoples who deeply enrich the quality and character of the community, making Portland and Oregon a better place to live and work. I'll move on to our consent. And now for today's consent agenda, we have 3 items. 4.1, resolution number 25-5530 for the purpose of amending the non-systems license number N028-25 issued to the Epson Portland Inc. to include transportation of future recyclable waste to the Spokane Waste to Energy facility for disposal. Sorry, it's a lot happening here, y'all, so bear with me. 4.2, resolution number 25-5518 for the purpose of authorizing the chief operating officer to issue a new non-system license to Eaton Corporation for transport and disposal of non-recoverable solid waste, including putrescible waste at the Spokane Regional Waste to Energy facility located in Spokane, Washington. And then finally, resolution number 225-5531 for the purpose of renewing the Willamette Resources Inc. and Republic Services of Clackamas County and Washington County's joint non-system license to transport commercial food waste and yard debris and residential food waste to the Pacific Region Compost Facility in Benton County, Oregon. 1 second, I got the rest of the script here. All right. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Deputy President Simpson, I'll move to.
Second,
I'll second.
it's been moved by Councilor Gonzalez and seconded by Councilor Lewis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, councilors. All right, we're moving on into our presentations now. We have a special presentation with Tracy Lowe. For the remainder of our council meeting today, we will hear presentations from our special guests, Tracy Hayden Lowe, followed by an informal discussion with councilors and members of Metro senior leadership team that have joined us today. Georgia, could you please lower the screen for Tracy's presentation? And counselors, let's join everyone down on the floor.
Sir. We can project. Be careful.
Oh my God. Yeah, my. You want to.
Testing.
Right. No, I got it.
Okay. I think we have all made the shuffle, and doing so, I'm gonna pass it over to Marisa Madrigal, our COO, to kick us off.
Good morning, everyone. It is wonderful to see you all here today. We are doing something a little bit different today, sitting in the round, something that we haven't done before. So really appreciate everybody literally coming to the table and engaging with us today. And welcome to our amazing guest here. So one of the things that I love about Metro's charge is that it's in our charter that we need to have a 50-year vision. Metro's work helping our region create a vision is really thinking 50 years into the future. It's challenging and it presents a level of uncertainty that can be uncomfortable, but really allows us to imagine together. Who else really does this? As part of this work, we are bringing experts and thought leaders to talk with council, the Future Vision Commission, and our community. Today, we have Tracy Haddon-Lowe from the Brookings Institute with us for one of those conversations. Among other topics, she will talk about the unique role of regionalism in shaping a vibrant future. And, you know, this different space that may feel a little weird, I encourage all of us to approach with curiosity and imagination, and sort of like lean into this different configuration. And maybe it can represent that things are malleable, and with intention and thoughtfulness, we can shape our region for the future in ways that we have a hard time imagining today. I want to welcome our senior leadership team, members of which are here, our equity leaders, and thank you, council, for engaging in this conversation. All right. In a few minutes, I'm going to turn it over to our new guest, but first I'm going to hand it to Councilor Gonzalez. We're just rolling with it today. Is going to share a few reflections and from yesterday's regional day.
Is this thing on? It is. All right. Buenos dias, everybody. Great to see y'all. Council, leadership, and community members. We had a really special session yesterday, which Tracy was a part of. A panel that was moderated by Maria Zimmerman, who is a great friend to Portland, former staffer to Congressional Blumenauer, did some really amazing work in the Biden administration under DOT, as well as other panelists from the Austin City Council and from the Minneapolis-St. Paul region. And as I think as the councils, we were looking to set up this process. And as Marisa was talking about, trying to find this North Star, this 50-year vision that can help align our institutions and our multi-sector leaderships, because there's so much great energy in the city, in this region. We set this ambitious goal of trying to engage with as many people as possible. And in my own personal research, meeting with people that were a part of the 1995 vision, I would hear these stories of ballrooms and convention centers filled with dozens and hundreds of people coming together to share their energy for this place that we love. And we were able to do a little bit of that yesterday, and it was very, very impressive, very special. We had about 150 people come together for a workshop that was teed up by our panel. And we started talking about what's collaboration mean, what does setting a shared and common goal mean? And again, I just want to thank the staff for that. We have had our first Future Vision Commission meeting. I think the group is gelling really well. And critically, I'm feeling as optimistic as I can about the work ahead, given the tyranny of the now and all the things that we're going through. One of the panelists, which is Austin City Councilor Chito Vela, who is with us, he shared this quote that is like really sticking with me. And hopefully I can remember it off the top of my mind. If not, Tracy, help me here. But it was like, for decades, nothing will change. And then in a few months, decades of change will happen. And I really feel like that is what we're living through right now. And what I'm taking away from that is the only constant that we have, what is bringing us together, is change. So I think we can lean into that and talk about what we want for our future and for our babies and for those that will inherit this region. So thank you, Marisa, for allowing me to share some remarks.
Thank you. Well, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest today. Tracy Haddon Lowe is a fellow at Brookings Metro, where she integrates her interests in commercial real estate, infrastructure, racial justice, and governance. Tracy's going to start off with some context setting, and then we'll have a Q&A and discussion. Tracy, welcome.
Got it. Okay. This format's a little different for me too. I like this. This is uncomfortable though, too. I want to just acknowledge that. It's okay. Like, so here's the thing, like, this is not my first time visiting you guys. And also you came to visit, you know, me and all the friends in DC. So I've already like PowerPointed you to death a couple times. So it just didn't seem right to do it a third time. And I am scared that I'm going to get fired because I work at Brookings and I'm pretty sure that I'm not supposed to go anywhere without showing at least one graph. So I don't know what's about to happen, but thank you for like stepping into the uncomfortable with me, because this does feel responsive to me, to like not just how uncomfortable it is to think about making a 50-year vision, you know, in a time when the pace of change is faster than ever and there's so much uncertainty, but also responsive to the now that Councilor Gonzalez was just referencing, where like I am pretty sure that like one more graph or PowerPoint is not going to fix it. So I appreciate that we could just dispense with all of that, even though, of course, like it's important to have like structures for a body like this usually. Thank you for, you know, joining me in a circle today. Okay, I did make some notes and then left my reading glasses on the podium at the hotel. So they're prescription readers. Yeah, you know, the second I turned 40, these just rolled out of my eyes. These are fake, basically. But this is in bold, and also like I'm going to speak from the heart a little bit. So hopefully I'm going to be okay. Just bear with me if I'm like doing a little of this. Okay. All right, so Regional Day, which Counselor Gonzalez was just talking about, that was a really fascinating convening. I have never participated in something quite like that. I would love to do that more places. There were a lot of questions at the event about how a region comes together. The Future Vision task force panel, commission, the commissioners were super engaged. So that was really impressive. I mentioned a couple times, like responding to their questions, that it's usually a crisis of some kind that brings everyone together, like in other places around the country, like when regions do big things. And, you know, the second Trump administration might be a crisis for Portland. So, you know, like maybe that's like a motivator. But after Regional Day ended yesterday, I was just like enjoying some extremely delicious Vietnamese food in beautiful downtown Portland. And I was like reading the New York Times, and I saw they're really upset over there right now about their mayoral election. So I saw this headline about Andrew Cuomo, and I realized that at Regional Day yesterday, like no one mentioned that every single one of us has recently gone through an enormous crisis, which was the pandemic. And seeing Cuomo's name like reminded me of this because he used to have a lot of press conferences. And I remember in the very early days of the pandemic, hearing him discussing contact tracing and like explaining what that was. So I went back to look up what he said at this press conference that was sticking in my head. He said, if I turn up positive, yeah, my residence is in Westchester County, but I work in New York City. And I would have contacted many more people in New York City than I did in Westchester. If you're going to do these tracing operations, you can't do it within just your own county because you will quickly run into people who are cross-jurisdictional. Okay, so there we have it. That's what a region is. It's not a line or a collection of lines that we draw on a map. It's just people living their lives. And many of the capacities of government that we have line up with the lines rather than the lives. And that's why the Metro Council was created. So, you know, the real world, you know, is the lives, and government needs to align with that. That said, it is also annoying if government becomes another layer to coordinate instead of value added. So the challenge, I think, for the future vision is to not just do another exercise, but to focus on specifically how to add value and the areas where regionalism matters the most. So I made a little list that I'm going to speed run through of the areas where I think regionalism matters the most. Extremely open to hearing other people's thoughts on this too. Okay, so first, that the locations of housing and jobs don't align, right? Just like Andrew Cuomo lives in one jurisdiction and works in another, so does like half the world. So we just need better coordination of not just like land use decisions and transportation, but like kind of everything about, you know, we need to treat people as whole people, their residents and their workers. A region is one labor market. So workforce development and economic development, those are areas that need the power of collective impact, not just housing and transportation. Social justice is regional because jurisdictional boundaries, they often separate communities by race and class. And, you know, that is just the reality. That means that communities of color and lower income communities are often traveling further for work, breathing more polluted air, hosting more than their fair share of toxic land uses. And if you think back to COVID, a lot of those pre-existing inequalities determined who got sick and who didn't. So we have to act regionally if we want to make progress on social justice. And while personal health is often like hyper local, you know, in terms of like kind of your neighborhood conditions and being a big factor, there are a lot of environmental health outcomes that are regional. I was walking through downtown Portland last night and I saw a park full of like huge, just gigantic golden ginkgo trees. And I was just struck again by how amazing the natural beauty of this region is. And protecting while connecting to that seems like a no-brainer for the vision. Like that's going to be in there somehow. So, like how to go about pulling this together. Just to loop back to what I said up top, I think that a piece of this should be working together to streamline duplicative efforts or processes that waste resources and people's time. I think that would be responsive to the current moment. And the cross-sector coalitions that I was talking about at Regional Day yesterday, if they want to have impact, that's a piece that they need to do, generally speaking. That's a pattern I see across regions. The last time I was here, someone was describing to me what they do in order to pay their taxes. And I honestly wasn't sure that I could believe like what I was hearing. I'm not sure I even like understood correctly. Like if you really like, do you guys go to like all these different websites? Like you go. Okay. So it just seems like I'm sure there are other examples too, and that this is not just about government. Like this is not just about government, like think across sectors, but it just seems like there's maybe some low-hanging fruit for there. You know, regionalism is also about leaning into an opportunity for scale. There are many problems and opportunities where the region is the scale of the challenge, right? Like I just listed my favorites, but I'm sure you can think of more. And that is it, that opportunity for scale is unique and really special. The Metro Council is also special in that it has authority and resources. So those should be deployed, not just to articulate a vision, but to align for implementation, but also reach across sectors for implementation. Government alone often cannot deliver success, and that does not mean that government has failed. It means we're a society, not just a bureaucracy. So this has to be bigger than Metro Council. And finally, keep equity at the center, right? Regional governance is a uniquely powerful way to repair inequity because of the fragmented governance reality that we have across regions in the US. Cooperation creates strength. There is a business case for this too, right? Equity and regional prosperity are linked. You can't have sustained regional economic growth while communities within a region are systematically excluded from opportunity. Those two goals are inseparable. And I hope my pitch is to make that a part of the vision somehow. For some reason, I have lately had a lot of reminders right now in my own life of the pandemic time. It's so weird how that, I wonder why that's happening. It's painful for me to think back to that time. Like almost like a little like traumatic and triggering. But I think that it could be helpful to draw forward lessons from that time about what we could have done better for the future. I didn't say that yesterday at Regional Day, and I wish I had, so I'm sneaking it in now. But that said, if there's any way to have any fun while doing all this, I think that would also be great because it's important to approach the future with a sense of optimism, especially with how things feel right now. All right, that's my pitch.
Thank you so much. One of the things that you said really struck me was that, you know, our community has decided that regionalism is important, and so we created Metro, but there's this danger that we're this extra layer / annoying, which some might argue is part of our brand, but what, can you talk a little bit more, and then we can open it up to others about what makes regionalism work? Like, what are you seeing out there? What elements do we need to have in order to, you know, as you say, like show value in this form of government?
So like yesterday at Regional Day, I talked a lot about how it has to be cross-sector. This isn't just about adding another layer of government. And I stand by that really strongly. I think that there's a need, not just in Portland, but in like every region in the United States, for us to increase trust and cooperation between business, government, community. It has to happen because it's really only possible to get things done when everyone is pulling in the same direction. That is what makes it possible to do big things. And sometimes it's okay and better to just be in a reality where it's only possible to do incremental things. But I think a 50-year vision is inherently big. And there are many aspects of the current moment that sometimes you do need to do something big. And that means you have to get to collective impact, as even though that is like also an annoying buzzword. It has some truth behind it.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Thanks. Tracy, as you were talking, like more and more of yesterday was playing through my mind. And I think everyone here knows like I have a 3-month-old baby, and so sleep is at a premium. So it's like my brain is like is getting there.
I mean, and that room had no windows. So there's a part of me that's like, how long were we in there?
Yeah. It was like 3.5 hours. It's pretty lit. So right now you shared a few things that like were some of the really exciting themes, takeaways that I'm taking, and I want to share them a little bit more, like more reflections, and I really want to invite my colleagues to also reflect on things. But you also just talked again about this concept of what is a region, and you shared this about like what a region is a labor market. It is a watershed. It is not a place that people are from, right? And so like, how do we view ourselves in terms of that? I think that is really, really powerful to me. And then when I think about the context of Future Vision in 1995, I feel like that plan was much more insular, was much more inward looking. It was about how do we manage growth within our region, with Hillsborough or Gresham or Wilsonville or Portland, and then how do our corridors grow to meet what we want here? And what I was hearing about the best practices of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Austin and DMV, where you're from, was that those regions are collaborating in a much different way in the 21st century, because those regions are looking at, well, how do we prepare our place to be the most competitive for our goals? Because it's not so much about how's Hillsborough competing versus Gresham or West Lynn. It's more about how is Greater Portland engaging against Austin, Texas, or Minneapolis, or whatever our other competitor regions are in
The
terms of
world,
investment.
honestly, the world. Why wouldn't the Portland region be world-class?
Amen. Amen. So there's that. And then the second, there was another big reflection, which is that I get this sense when I'm talking to people that like people really feel like nothing works right now. And there's like this crisis of legitimacy and trust that our governments have. And that is no exception to local governments. When we talk about housing costs, how does our healthcare system work? Can we address climate change effectively? Can we build bridges on time and on budget, like basic things? Can we fix homelessness? I mean, like the everyday people that are not the inside baseball, the wonks. There's a real sense that is this government infrastructure going to meet my needs? And I mean, the far right, the White House, they're making a very clear argument about their vision for what a changing government is. And so I think that like, that is a really important thing to ground ourselves in terms of we need to work under this mindset of renewal and reform and change and updating and modernizing. And I think also someone on the panel yesterday was like, 2019, 2018, that status quo, we're never going back to that. That is like that comfort that we tell ourselves, like, let's just go back to when things were okay. That is not a reality that exists. And so we need to find something for the future. And I think there was another really important theme that I took away from yesterday, which was for decades, our region was incredibly successful. And we experienced growth and accolades, and we built things that the rest of the world was like, wow, how do we do that there? And there's this growing sense of acknowledgement that that growth that we took for granted is no longer for granted, is no longer something that we can assume will happen. And I was talking with Councilor Vela from Austin, Texas, and he was like, you know what, bro, like, I'm really surprised at the attitude that I hear from Portlanders when you guys talk about yourselves. Like, y'all are freaking amazing. And in 2010, y'all were like won 5 championships basically. And now you're average, and you're really struggling with coming to terms that you're not a championship winning team right now. But like our city, our region in Austin looks to you for, he's like, we don't even have one light rail line in our city, and you have this world-class system in Portland. And I thought that was really, really powerful. And I'm going to wrap up here because I'm talking a lot, but this perception, this sense of perception, the sense of how we define ourselves is clearly outdated. And we are all yearning for, well, what is it that we can be? And I think this is what Future Vision is going to be helping us to do. And then Tracy, you share some examples of the DMV that I think are super, super interesting in terms of what does the DMV even see itself as a region or not, given what you shared. I would love to hear that again. And the truth is that because we were so successful as a region and we were growing, all our governments had a ton of money. And they're like, you know what, we kind of stopped this collaboration because it's like, actually, I don't really need to work with you. I'm going to go and do my own thing. Because our fiscal reality is not strong, we are going to be scrappy. We have no choice but to collaborate and to be efficient and to innovate. And so I'm finding a lot of hope and excitement in that. But I wanted to share those 3 themes. And hopefully they kind of spark more deep conversation as well. And I'm not going to talk for the next 30 minutes.
Okay, and this is also not just going to be me and Counselor Gonzalez going back and forth.
I'm giving it to Counselor Nolan.
Can I underscore one thing that you just said? You mentioned my home region and how my home region is struggling right now because you're right. The Trump administration has a vision. They do. And they are moving quickly to implement it. And my home region is being transformed. It's someone else's vision. This is why it actually matters for your region to have your vision. Because unless you want the future to be someone else's vision, you have no choice but to make your own. And it has to be one that not just politicians can buy into, or any one sector. It has to be one that all sectors can say, I heard about this. It's compelling. I'm going to push this forward, because otherwise, the other vision will become something that just happens to you.
Love that exchange. And it really resonates with me that I think we're a region of overachievers who are still trying to do better. Counselor Nolan.
Are any, open up to any councils?
Is this working?
Yes.
I agree that the tone and conversation is being set outside of this region, outside this room. We are reinforcing it. And I think that's a lesson we have to learn to reverse. You described Portland that had fallen into bad times. That's the message that the federal government is sending about all cities, and particularly cities that tend toward supporting the Democratic Party. We shouldn't be repeating their message. We should be focusing instead on what we're doing right, what is working here. Because when we repeat it, it becomes credible and absorbed by our constituents. The other thought I had is, you mentioned about a world-class city. We should think about our comparables on that as we do with what US cities compare ourselves with. What's a world-class city? So Cairo with 18 million inhabitants, almost 80% of whom are living in poverty. Copenhagen, Tokyo, what are the images there and what's working? The other comment I'd have though is, I'm not sure we have to be number one. Is good enough good enough? Do we invest? Is the investment of time, money, energy, community spirit that gets you from one of the top 25 to the top one really where we want to put our energy? So I'll leave those questions out there.
Solid question, and I think it leads kind of into the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which is, so we need a vision, or someone else is gonna envision it for us. We're a planning organization. What is the difference between planning and visioning? How do we make that?
Okay, well, definitely visioning is when you sit in the uncomfortable circle. And
Check.
planning is when you're on the die, right? Like, I'm 100% sure of this. Right, so, visioning, it is more of like that consensus building exercise of like, finding something that, working towards something that everyone can get behind. And then planning and then implementation. There's going to be like a lot more compromise and a lot more coalition of the willing at that phase. I think the 50-year horizon is something that's particularly like absolutely nobody knows what's going to happen in 5 years, much less 50, right? That kind of horizon immediately suggests that visioning along that timeline is generational, to Councilor Gonzalez's point about babies. Maximum flexibility has to be the guide, and that's not what planning is about. So that's a huge difference. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah. It's, it makes me think about so many times when we try to get to that, like, project into the future, we get hung up in we can't do this because of that. We can't do this because of this. And get tied up in the problem solving instead of projecting what the vision is and trying to, be imaginative and like almost suspend the current reality so that you can envision the future one. Counselors, do you have any thoughts on the difference? Counselor Wong?
Maybe it's kind of a mood I'm in today, following this conversation, this morning about food security. I really feel this immediate pressure, so it's hard to like think the far future. So I just want to acknowledge that first. So we, as Councilor Gonzalez said, we had by many metrics, a very successful decade in the 2010s. But I also want to recognize that it actually wasn't that successful for many people in our community. Right? Like I felt like we had this party in the 2010s. A lot of people were left out. And we actually sowed some of the seeds of like the situation that we're in. Like we basically were like, we're not going to build enough housing. And we obvious restrictions or whatever. And that's something that we're paying for now. So I just want to be sure that, you know, by some growth metrics, economic metrics, the 2010s were great, but they weren't great for everybody. And what we saw was a lot of like gentrification, displacement, and we left a lot of people behind. And that's what we're dealing with and feeling in this current moment. So I think in the future, as we play, like, I really liked your point on inclusive growth, because that's so important, because when we had growth and we weren't inclusive, that, you know, like basically my seats were where we are now. So I just wanted to, you know, acknowledge that, like, I actually don't feel like the 2010s were like the successful shining moment. I think this is the opportunity to actually plan for the future that we want to see, that, you know, it is inclusive, that does have shared wealth, and we're not exacerbating wealth inequality. Because I think that's what we did before, was like we shifted our economy. Now we have tech workers, you know, making great wages, but what about everybody else? And now that the tech sector is weaker in that moment here, what does that mean for us? So avoiding some of those mistakes of the past, like just, you know, growth for the sake of growth doesn't make sense for me. Like we got to be thoughtful about diversifying the economy and bring everybody in.
Other counselors? We'll take a second to open it up to SLT. Anyone want to chime in on what's the difference between planning and visioning? What are the elements that we need to be able to create the space to be able to imagine a different future? You all be great at it.
I'm Andy in Government Affairs. Thinking about how can visioning deal with some of those, what we're seeing of sort of shredding of social fabric from the pandemic, or what we're seeing on the national scene. How can you use a process like that to rebuild social contract, social agreement?
Do it in person instead of online. Right? Like that's, I mean, this kind of like bigger picture issue about, it's not just about like atomization, increasing amounts of time that people spend alone or online, or partisanship, right? Like all of those things are related. And so you can't address any one of them without addressing all of them. And, you know, like this process itself, like clearly is going to need to involve convening. And so like, this is one of those, but like do this in as many settings as possible. Not just like meetings for meetings' sake, but I mean, like, I do think this needs to be a trust building exercise. Like there's no point in having a vision at the end if people aren't like, I'm willing to work with you in order to advance this.
And people have to see themselves in it, or
enough of themselves. There's no such thing as a vision where everyone's going to be like, I thought it was perfect, 100. It's like just enough to be like, okay, let's go.
I love that.
I see that this is good for our collective.
Yeah. Other thoughts? Happy to open it up to everybody.
Add something. I really appreciate what's behind what you said, which I think is partly not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Oh
And
my God, Maria said that yesterday.
I think a couple people said it in a couple different places. And in the visioning context, it definitely feels like what we need to do is be as broad as possible in defining what the good looks like. And then in the planning context, being willing to figure out, okay, if that's what good looks like, how can we get close, but still recognize the needs of folks who may or may not share our exact, because we're a region, they may or may not share our exact values or priorities, because there's a broad range of values and priorities across the region. But if we can get to good and then get, hold that as our North Star, I think that will help our planning processes.
I feel like there's a difference between someone coming to the table willing to look for good for their little pocket and someone at the table looking for good for the region. And I wonder if we could explore that, but I don't want to. Do you want to add anything?
I'm sure.
How do we get people to come in that regional mindset? How do we prepare the ground for that? Because I think where I see things break down when we have a multi-jurisdictional table is people really are there just representing their corner. And that's not going to work if we want to get everybody on board. So how do we set that table?
When I think about the way that we've talked about vision versus planning, I think it's always in that little chart idea where we're a star that's going down the line and it's linear. And again, it's medians for median's sake, which we do too much of here. So thank you for being an outside voice advising us to do less of that. But I think neither process should really be linear, because what we've failed to do is circle back with learnings and do process improvement or iterative correction, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just in the space that we're moving towards a vision, and that's like kind of the like small degrees that we're going to move this agency and the organizations that support society to grow this region differently. But it's hard to get there when we're supposed to take one step at a time. And that's what the planning is for, is like moving us along, and we can't get out of our own way. A couple of things, and I would love your perspective on at least one of them. We haven't talked about the culture, arts and culture and community culture that binds a region together. It's like, where are your local friends? Where are your local clubs? Where are the folks who share your culture and interests? Kind of that kind of commute shed. But we seem not to really want to get our heads around Vancouver. And part of that's because we're Oregon Metro. We have no taxing authority. We have no land use authority, though we may want to when we cross the river. But more and more, I think that that's our biggest weakness. And there's only 2 states here, and you come from a region that has more than 2 states. There's like, I think at least 3 tri-county or 3 state areas across the country. So it's not unusual, and other places have done it better, working across state lines and not just city lines. So if you could enlighten us how it works to work across state lines, that would be helpful.
I don't know that I think anyone works well across state lines. Like, it's a federalist society and we're all just living in it. So this is really hard. I am serving on a regional task force in the DC area right now, actually not in my day job capacity. This is in my like Batman by night capacity. And on this task force, we are the District of Columbia, the state of Maryland, the state of Virginia are coming together. This is like to deal with how mass transit is organized and funded in the region. I actually missed the final meeting of this task force to be here. This is like their fault, right? Because they scheduled the meeting like after I planned this trip. But my phone was smoking on the first day that I got here with like texts and emails from everyone being like, what if we don't work together? You know, like all this like last minute,
Give up.
you know, yeah. And the day before the meeting, they gave us like the packet of all the public comments, you know, like commenting on the resolution that we were about to vote on. And the public comments there were a lot of, I'm disappointed, this doesn't do enough. Like, and all that is real because working together at the regional scale is really hard. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good is absolutely my take on that. And that the key to working together at the regional level is that you know, it is just not that super likely that the governor of Washington and the governor of Oregon, like, even if they are friends and like super aligned, are going to get together and be like, let's create like a set of shared priorities and solutions for this region, right? Because these people are very busy. Like, you know, and so like this region actually is like ahead in the sense that like, you know, like we're a purple region in DC, right? So there's like other reasons why all of these governors are not going to get together and have a meeting. Like, it's just not going to happen. What has to happen instead is that trusted messengers who do like live and work and are accountable to the region have to go to the state legislature and the governor in order to get specific things done. And so cultivating the trust and the messengers is the key. I think first off, you're totally right to raise arts and culture, like as a theme that I didn't mention. Oh my God. Like, yeah, I shot 100. And then 2, like, yeah, absolutely. Like you know, you are right that like there are like real pieces of the challenges that this region faces where Vancouver is part of the solution. And so, you know, I wonder if we could be so bold as to say, like, even though that's not, you know, inside the line that's been drawn for Metro Council, is there some aspect of the vision process, or perhaps like within the vision could be a call for some channels of communication and collaboration? Like, I think it's awesome that you're asking those questions. The solution at the end of the day, like beneath process, beneath structure, is people. So what's the Vancouver area code? Start dialing it.
360.
Yeah.
Former Washingtonian here. Counselors, any reflections? Counselor Wong?
I'm glad even the most casual observer knows that our tax system is clunky and strange. And I think there are some low-hanging fruit there, but as we think about, you know, ambitious regional vision, one thing I always come back to is like, how are we going to pay for it? And I'm wondering if you could speak about how you balance the like dreaming big and having an incredible vision for the future, also knowing the budget situations that, you know, local jurisdictions are in, and how do we think about that future we want to build, but also know, you know, like, well, we got to pay for it, or someone's got to pay for it. Like, yeah. So what should we do?
Right. So that's why it's really important that the vision have a really clear theory of how it creates value. You should also then ask yourself, what is the cost of not working together? So that's kind of like speaking to both sides of the budget ledger. Are there ways that greater regional coordination can generate savings as opposed to costs? And then are there ways that working together as a region can create value, and how will it be captured? It's that simple. This is not just about running up the bill more.
Other thoughts from council? Opening it up to the room. Any reflections? Any questions anybody has? I see you holding that
I'm
mic.
looking at Councilor Nolan here. It's been 30 minutes. All right, if not, $25 to your favorite food bank. Yes, I'll donate. I lost the bet. So as we're talking about all these things, I think it's critical to me that we're not afraid to talk about like the sacred cows or like the third rails or anything like that. And so I want to say things that are meaningful, but also like, damn, did he just say that? So I'm going to say something. And Counselor Simpson and I were in a conversation where this came up, and I really liked his response. So I'm going to say it and then see if it helps kind of cultivate more conversation. So I think a lot about like, what do we say about ourselves? Like, what are our slogans or our mottos? And what does that say about the culture and the fabric of who we are as Oregonians or Portlanders? And there's a slogan that is very popular that I'm not gonna lie, like the more time passes, the more I despise it. And I just want to say that out loud. And that's keep Portland weird. I have to be honest. It just does not sit well with me. And that's controversial and like, all right, hot take. I want everyone to like line up on pro and against, right? Thanks, Duncan. And there's a reason why. So, I mean, it's 3 words. Portland is in the middle, and it's sandwiched by these 2 strong ideas, which is keep. The first is keep. To me, that is status quo, maintain. And also it builds on this like legacy of Tom McCall, which is like visit but don't stay, like this is for us, not for you. I don't know. And I just have a really hard time with the word keep when our state has this like really, excuse my language, like fucked up history around Black and white people and like this white utopia. So I've never really felt called to by this keep thing, like Counselor Huang was talking about, like it hasn't been working for so many people. So to me, it talks about this, like this focus as a mid-sized city that is growing into a larger city, a more global city, and other cities that are on the same trajectory to us. The politics are around preservation rather than embracing this next phase. So I think that's a really interesting thing. The second side of that sandwich is weird, which to me is like a lot of things, but to me, it like weird works for you if you're a specific demographic. That's all I'll say. And also to me, kind of erases a lot of the other lived experiences, diversity, identities that exist in the area and the region. And I think like actually does a disservice to telling the story of what we are. But most importantly to me also, weird does not connote like excellence or like this is the standard of what we want our city to be, or our region to be, I should say, as a suburbanite. But I've been just thinking a lot about that. Like, what do we say about ourselves? What are the labels that we assign to ourselves? And because that is one that I feel like I've inherited, that in terms of like seeing the way that we talk about ourselves, Portlandia, all of those things. I wanted to say that because I don't know when else I would say it.
Are you
Feel free to
allowed
line up
to
to
say
boo me.
something that controversial and uncomfortable while this seating arrangement is that's much. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So your comments have made me think about something. I want to go off script. Sorry. If I could ask everybody in the room to just take take the next minute, 60 seconds to imagine 50 years in the future. The first thing that comes to mind of what you want. I recognize the challenge of that in a time when we are bombarded by all these stresses and all these crises and all these things that are happening right now. But try to breathe and let that go and just take a minute to project 5 decades forward and just think about that for a minute. Okay, gently come back into the room. Now we're gonna get real uncomfortable. I'm standing up. Let's just kind of popcorn. What is coming up for you? Harmony.
Another thing that was said yesterday, we all do better when we all do better.
Beautiful. Krista.
Everything in balance with the earth.
Others?
Multi-generational beauty and harmony also is in my mind.
Harmony is a strong theme.
A place where my grandchildren can play in nature and walk in streets with lots of thriving energy and activity for everyone.
Beautiful. Others? What's coming up for you? Andrew?
I would say the happiness index of Finland.
Happiness. Love it.
I'm so excited I get to participate. I'm gonna be 86, so in the 50 years in the future. So I would really like to not be stressed about the cost of housing. Just enjoy being 86.
I want that too. I want to be cracking jokes in the nursing home.
I will say resource security. Like, yeah, secure and resource security, like knowing that you're going to have a meal and have a place to sleep at night.
I was envisioning what I wanted the region to look like, and that there's a lot of green space, people walking, biking, moving around to get to the places that they need to go. Unlike Jay, I don't think I will be here in 50 years.
Refreshing cooling corridors, cooling us off. Others? Oh, coming on back.
I'll be 80, so I was imagining sitting at a restaurant and looking around, and whoever I was dining with, just reflecting on, oh, when I was younger, this was known as being a very white city, and I would be looking around and seeing a lot of people of color at different income levels and a more vibrant color palette.
Thank you. Jess?
I was imagining quiet and the benefit that that brings to folks being able to hear the birds in their neighborhood, hear the kids playing in their neighborhood, and not hear the highway noise or the other just stressful things that a city can bring to you.
It's a human health issue, noise. Others? Anybody from the bank?
My kids will be in their 50s and 60s. So I was thinking about what I would want for them, and it would definitely be engagement and like happy, healthy families.
Don't make me pass this down the row. Counselors, what's coming up for you?
I have a question for Tracy. Have you been at rooms in metropolitan areas that come up with answers that are dramatically different than the ones we just came up with?
Oh, yeah.
What do they envision? They don't envision green spaces and quiet and coordination and harmony.
Actually, I do hear the green space thing a lot. This is like, there's lots of regions where the only regional plan is some kind of like parks and trails, like collaboration. That's not uncommon. And that is something that I think is, I think that, one, I think Americans like doing stuff, like doing nature stuff, like just generally speaking. I think that is something that's like true about this country. And then I also think that like the pandemic has led to like a huge surge in and like reconnection with the joy of outdoor recreation. And that is, it's just like a huge growth category everywhere. I do think you hear it more in Portland because the outdoor economy is like headquartered in Portland for the whole country. So I think you hear it even more and even more strongly here. And then, yeah, no, other regions are not sitting around talking about harmony. That is so Portland, and I love keep Portland harmonious. Make Portland harmonious. Really like, cause so Batman Me is doing this regional effort in the DC, Maryland and Virginia like area right now. No one ever talks about harmony. Are you kidding? That bar is way too high for us. We're really just like, can we stop attacking each other?
Wow. We really are overachievers then.
But actually like that was beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love it. Duncan?
It's so interesting, somebody said harmony, because that's such a great value to strive to. But there are also downsides to it. Like, we don't want to have hard conversations sometimes in our region because we want harmony. So I think it's like, how do you have honest conversations that get us to where we want to go so we can have that harmony? But harmony in itself isn't the goal.
Well, it is a natural human desire to want to try to find shortcuts. And so I think it's okay to aspire to a goal. The trick is to then like no cheating on how to get there.
Don't be passive aggressive. Yeah.
Other things coming up? I think I'd like to open it up to questions for Tracy and our counselors from the audience. What's coming up for you? 50-year vision. What haven't we talked about?
Yes. So I think as I was reflecting a little bit on what is the difference between visioning and planning, and I think that visioning is sort of your hopes, your values. And I think the danger is that we're in a time and space where people want to see that government works, that society works, that community works. And so we're going to want concrete like outcomes or concrete outputs that we're working for. And I think the real challenge is going to be to rise above that and actually it doesn't have to be necessarily striving for excellence, but really to pull ourselves up to that level that has something that's going to be meaningful 50 years from now. I'm not going to be here. My son will be really old. And so I think it's hard for us to it's hard for us to find meaning in strategies that are 50 years out. And so I think our tendency will be to say, well, what's our 5-year action plan? And I think that has value, but each one of these places has value. So I don't know, just for me, that's a little bit what I would reflect. I think this exercise is particularly challenging at a time when people really want to feel like they're putting their shoulder to the grindstone and actually getting something done. And so I guess I would be curious for you of like, how do you help people find value in an exercise that feels sort of amorphous?
Counselor Wong?
Oh, thanks. When I was thinking about 50 years from now, I envisioned a world where people were released from the need for the grind, not having to work multiple jobs to make it. And that people could have the ability to like pursue like their passions and interests without having to drive for Uber or something, but like, I wonder, Tracy, if you can maybe help us think about how we think about the pace of technological advance. And it's like, will we be working in the same way? Because I hope we aren't, but like how does technological change fit into this future vision where, a few years ago, we're like, oh, we're never going to work from home, but now we all work from home because we have Zoom or, but now we have AI and, cars that do, drive themselves. And I don't know, just like, how do we think about change in technology in our future vision? And it could, because I think it could be a really dark future or a really awesome future. And I hope we have the awesome future.
And the impact of technology, of course, is not just on work, right? It will be on it's on every aspect of life. It always has been, right? Mobility, buildings, what we know about what's been going on with technological change is that the pace of it is increasing. So 50 years from now doesn't even mean what 50 years ago meant to now. And just think about what's happened in the last 50 years. So the possibility space, where once it might have been like this, now it's like the whole, it's like a 180 or maybe even a 360. And that's why I said earlier that like maximum flexibility is the key, because we simply don't know what the future is going to be like in 50 years. But that makes it all the more important that we approach that uncertainty with the guidance of some values, right? To the point that was raised earlier. And to the point that I was making earlier about how other people are doing that. They're like applying a very specific theory and set of values to try to shape the future. Specifically regarding the technology piece, I think the right question to ask is, knowing that the pace of technological change is intense and may continue to increase, does your region have the capabilities and not just the flexibility, but the capabilities to keep pace with those changes? What about your current capacity and structures to understand and respond, or even try to get ahead in a more incremental way of these changes? Where are you on that right now? Like, reflect back on just the last 10 years, for example, and new technologies that have come on the scene in like Uber, for example, driverless cars, Zoom, right? These are 3 examples of technologies that like totally transformed every US metro area. Now think about how your region responded as those technologies became ubiquitous. What aspects of that response was like slow, clunky, inequitable, not aligned with your values? And how can this process speak to knowing that you will need, if there were ways in which capacity was not adequate in the last 10 years, how can you double or triple that capacity, knowing that one thing you can be sure of is it will be needed in the future. Good question.
Sabrina?
Do you think we'll get replaced by the algorithm? Just kidding. I mean, like, I feel like to maximize public good, sometimes like there's a program that could do that in our budgets and things like that, but that's just me. Never mind.
Thank you. I think what's coming up for me is just this zero sum kind of mindset that gets in the way of collaboration and, moving together. And I'm really thinking about it through the lens of, what we're experiencing now with racial equity is that the backlash on that is this tiny investment in correcting harm means you've taken something from me. And so I can see how kind of the distance of a 50-year vision it's far enough away that I think that we can envision some things and escape some of that zero-sum thinking. But then when we get back today, it feels like it just snaps back. We snap back into our positions. And so I'm wondering, like, what are the conditions that we need to be thinking about setting up now as we're building this vision that's going to support us being able to move from kind of those cultural collaborative space that disrupts folks just kind of retreating back to that zero-sum space.
Zero-sum thinking is also known as scarcity mentality. So the only way out of it is to find your version of growth mindset, abundance, whatever you want to call it. This is not growth for growth's sake, right? Someone already brought this up, that it has to, like, the Portland region is going to have its own version that is like purposeful and meaningful, beyond just the word growth, that speaks to values such as advancing inclusion. That's what I think, at least.
John? Well, I'll share a hallway moment that I had with our economist yesterday, and that is that the recession that we're seeing, much like the recession from the pandemic, is a K-shaped recession with people who are okay doing better and people who are not okay doing worse. And it's the second time in 5 years that we've experienced that in our region. So I do think this question of how do we have a different mindset, a different goal that's inclusive, and a vision that's inclusive of everyone to bring that bottom leg up.
Thanks on that last one. And first, Marissa, thank you for getting up and moving around. I'm like having flashbacks, and now we're like in a Donahue or Oprah Winfrey show. So I might be dating myself with Phil Donahue. I know.
Second career car.
But I was curious, kind of like as Councilor Wong was talking about technology and things moving forward, and Sabrina's talking a little bit about sort of recognizing some of those past harms. Are there examples that you've seen of other regions that have folded in the restorative justice and reconciliation process with that? Because we're sitting in what was some like historically Black neighborhoods that were bulldozed, and historically tribes and nations here that are still here, and we haven't fully come to terms with those things, I think, to be able to like really move forward. So do you have examples of other regions that have really folded that in to be able to have more of that coming together and talking about a shared vision rather than some individual groups' visions of what is great or what is weird or what is harmonious?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's happening all over the country. Look at these examples and get inspired. This is not like the oppression Olympics. I don't mean to be like, you think you guys did a racism? Wait till I tell you about Birmingham. This, I don't mean to set up an oppression Olympics, but like there are places that have really, really, really tough histories, and they must be grappled with in order to make progress. And yeah, I would point to Birmingham, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Kansas City, those 4 regions all have very recent regional inclusive growth plans of one form or another. And I think there's, I mean, like, it's easy for, like, of course, I'm also pointing to these places because I'm like, and the Brookings Institution has done a lot of work to work with them on those plans. But I really do think that they're good. And I think that, you know, we've been kind of hardcore on this inclusive growth thing for a while now because we are really convinced that this is the answer to, you know, how to solve some of these hard problems. The 4 regions that I mentioned, you know, what they have in common is that they are all like post-industrial, you know, AKA legacy cities. And Portland is not that, not in the same way, right? And so when you look to those plans for inspiration, I think you will see also that there is kind of there's a different mentality and sense of urgency about coming together when you are not growing. Like, if you think this is hard, that is hard. It's really hard. So, because you know, zero sum thinking, when the pie is getting smaller, that's when the zero sum people really come out. So, look to those plans for inspiration, but that's not where the bar can be for Portland. The bar has to be even higher.
Thank you.
St. Louis.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up? So we talked about tribes. Have you seen places like that, regions like that, or other places that have incorporated tribal nations into the future vision process? Many of whom think out in generations.
That's a really good question. I'm less familiar with that topic, but my colleague Rob Maxim does a lot of work with tribes, and so I can ask him and get back to you.
Awesome. Councilor Nolan.
I'd like to add a topic here that I haven't heard come up yet, and that is education. I'm talking not the whole span and not just about skills, which is an important part of education, but about a shared understanding of ourselves through what we learn in history and social studies and even language. And I'm interested in how Metro might consider that as part of our visioning. We've seen hijacking of public education systems recently and decline in our central city education system. And that's going to have a huge impact on the way people exist together 50 years from now. If we lose or we don't enhance the glue that an education system can provide for a society.
Thank you for that. Comments from counselors? It's interesting to think about something like education that's not in Metro's authority, but must be an element of a vision for community. Nature education. That's true. Yeah.
Kids actually, right, if you think about the hours of the day in the life of a child, out of school time is a much bigger part of their life than in school time.
Councilor Gonzalez, did you?
Yeah, yesterday during our Future Vision Regional Day discussion, we had like faith and community groups, nonprofit, we had academia and education, we had private sector, government sector, and philanthropy, right? And so like, I think we we were trying to be super intentional about bringing those sectors to the table. And Tracy, I have a question about, you talked a little bit earlier about the benefits of collaboration, but the costs of not collaborating as well. And I think yesterday you shared some really interesting insights, but can you talk about for a region that is visioning, but also for the regions that consider themselves high performing or whatever that means, what are the ingredients of success for all of those different kind of silos coming together?
It's a huge topic. So I'm just going to actually give one example. Actually, at the conference yesterday at Impact, before the regional day piece, I was on a panel with the head of the transit system in Nashville. And, Nashville is a city that's growing a ton. Someone was sharing the stat, 100 people move to Nashville a day. Their economy is booming. They just passed this really big referendum that dedicates new revenue to streets, sidewalks, transit, just a great package of things. So they, like everyone else, is doom loop, and Nashville is woo. So, so at first glance, you'd be okay, wow, how did they do it? Well, they had 2 failed referendums before they had the successful referendum, right? And that is because they really had to struggle to get to the point where all sectors were engaged. So it's not just, government bringing forward an offering and then, seeing what happens. But that, all sectors are good plan, let's go. Because, if other sectors, it's not enough for other sectors to just be okay if something happens. Ideally, they actively want it, but just keep in mind, if any other sector doesn't want something to happen, well, then it's really going to be hard to accomplish it. And, that's what's happened in Nashville in the past. So, I also went to a session at the conference called, it was something really cute that was a reference to a pop song I've never heard, so I can't remember it. But it was basically about how to package capital projects in order to get buy-in for them and thus money. And there were multiple stories of failure shared in that session as well. But the story of the successful ones was always the same, right? That in addition to, the stuff I was talking about yesterday of accountability, transparency, creating the shared goal, the North Star that you can then measure progress around. They also set themselves up. It can't just be the 50-year vision, right? They set themselves up to deliver early wins so that people can see that something is happening, and which increases trust, right? And the common theme across all of the failures was enormous amounts of money were spent and no results were delivered.
So you kind of have to stage the house.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's actually really hard to be imaginative and see a future state that is different.
Yeah, don't do the 5-year thing at the expense of the 50-year thing, to your point. But I think we've all recently learned that you can't spell hope without hop.
Bravo.
Can I follow up on that? Because I think, thank you for that. That was really deep. I think also yesterday there was a really kind of cool way how the conversation happened around, it's all economic development, right? It's
Everything
the education,
is really,
the transit that we build. And this is kind of, again, thinking through whether we're preserving our nature or making our schools better, It is all about how does our regional pool of place continue to be the destination that XYZ according to our values. So can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I think our region is grappling with this kind of like, you know, where there is this potential doom loop. And I don't think it's just coming from DC. I think those things have been coming from people that live here and are worried, right? And so I think there's this sense of we need to grapple with what does that mean for us. And I think that the panel yesterday was really insightful, but I want to ask, what do you think about the kind of the layers of that? And I think economic development as a, like it triggers all of us in a different way because we like kind of define it and what it thinks, the good and the bad. Most people feel like growth happens to them, not for them, et cetera. But yeah, what advice do you have for us as we kind of go forward and grapple with all the things that you know of us and what is possible?
Do regional economic development, right? Like, and within a frame of inclusive growth. Like all of the other regional plans that I mentioned, they're economic development plans. You know, like Portland, I think, is a little unique in that the motivation to create regional government, you know, in part came from an understanding that a region is like an ecosystem, is an environment. But in Minneapolis, and then which was on the panel yesterday, and all these other regions that I'm talking about, people come together because they understand that a region is an economy. It's both, and you can't make progress on one without the other.
So we have about 12 minutes left before I ask our guests to give us any final advice. One thing that hasn't come up is tourism, bringing other people to our region to spend money. It's and experience us. And it's a huge part of Metro's responsibility. What is our vision when we think about the future? Why would people come to Portland? What's bringing them here?
Yeah.
I just,
Are we
for
sporty?
the record, for everyone watching the recording in the future, the people around me are whispering because it's weird. I love my colleagues.
But
The food.
it is the interesting, it's food, it's beer, it's, you know, wine or wine adjacency. And I mean, it's also arts and sports and those elements, but it's the combination, I think, of those things. What was it that got us in the New York Times, you know, week after week after week during the tens around food? What attracted that creativity here? You know, can folks understand or dig into what is it that creates a space for that food creativity, for that innovation in beer and other places that has been a part of it. I also just note that Travel Portland, a lot of the videos they do accentuate the weird. They have, you know, the Sasquatch walking across the town. It's the unicycler, the unipiper in videos they put in Japan, and those things work to put Portland on the map. It's making Portland weird.
Others?
I think all of those things, but also it's the nature. I think it's the nature that brought a lot of people here. It's the ability to go to the mountains and go to the rivers and go to the coast. All of that is what I think makes this place so special. And what I hope in 50 years is just as good or better than it is now.
I hear people talk about the people, and I think it gets back to what you were just talking about, whether it's weird or some other word, there's like an energy. I haven't been young for a while, but when I was, young people were moving to Portland because of the energy and the people and the folks they could meet. Yesterday when I was leading a group discussion at the regional day, and someone talked about it in terms of craft. He didn't mean craft beer, but he meant like craft industries, craft. So I think he was getting at innovation. So there's something in there for me, energy, innovation, creativity. I think there's something unique here in this region.
I love that. And I also came here in the 2000s, early 2000s, end of 2000. And I think I was part of that creativity. My friends and I had a little magazine. What made it possible was that my rent was $400 for a really cute place, let me tell you. It was $400 and I could afford to take chances. And so how do we create a vision for 50 years where people can take chances and really get into that craft or really get into that art or whatever and be a place that people can be? Because I think that is lost. My daughter is now the age that I was when I moved to Portland. And it's totally unaffordable. So, I think I love this conversation. How do we create those conditions? Final thoughts from our council before I turn it over to Tracy?
Sure, thank you. When I think about the Portland of the early 2000s, I moved here in 2003. I think about there being this scale thing where we were a big enough city that we had big city amenities, but we were still really small. And we're kind of still there. We're like teetering on the big city edge. And I wonder if as we continue to grow, how we don't lose that sense of, yes, there's always going to be over 100 neighborhoods. Yes, there's going to always be 24 cities or so. But if you really like dragon boating, I do. You're a friend of every single dragon boater in the whole region. And pick your thing that you like. It's not like going to New York City or Chicago where maybe you are a knitter, but you're like more than 2 degrees separated from the other knitters. So we gotta figure out what that community scale thing is even as we grow.
I love being able to go anywhere in the region and run into people that you know.
Manisa, I just want to say, I love what you just said. I thank you for sharing that. That really hit me in my heart. And also I can't believe rent was $400.
You know,
The rent is too damn high.
it's really cute. Jokes.
And if you have any edition of that magazine hanging around, like I'm trying to read that.
Well, the funny thing, it was pre-internet, so it really does only exist on paper in some boxes, but yeah.
Talk about
And it wasn't the
technology
only one.
change.
There were
Yeah.
a lot of people. Well, this has been delightful. Thank you so much, everyone, for engaging and sitting in that discomfort. Thank you, Tracy, for naming it. I think that helped us punch through that. I'm so excited about this work at Metro and all the people that are involved in it. I really do see a beautiful thing coming from it. So any final words of advice for us as we embark on this journey?
I guess I'm reflecting back just on, so just to be clear, the resolution that, my home region was voting on yesterday passed. Okay, so I'm feeling like really good about it. Like my phone didn't like smoke and explode. We didn't all betray each other at the last minute. Like we're gonna figure this out. So, the hope that I take from that is that in a political context that I think is like one of the most challenging for regionalism in the United States, progress is happening. So Portland has no excuses. The conditions here are excellent for regionalism. And so that becomes not just about like, okay, how do we do it? But how do you do it very well? The eyes of the whole country are on Portland right now. So, right? Because of the eyes are mainly on the frog guy, but it's Portland. And so like, not only like, do you not want the next 50 years to be something that just happens to you? Like that is the same feeling as like not wanting the next 5 weeks to be something that happens to you. Like be proactive, get out there, tell your own story, and be loud about it.
Thank you.
I'll just add one thing, and I think Marissa said something that's very important. I think the future, you can't predict the future. There's events that happen that change the future that you can't predict in advance. For example, the invention of the sneaker by Bowerman. Okay. That's changed our future, that's changed our perception. But creating a future where people are not afraid to take chances. That's the key.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for being here. Let's give a round of applause for our speaker. I'm going to turn it back to you, Deputy Council President.
Thank you, COO Madrigal, and thank you all for the great discussion today, and special thanks to Tracy for joining us and sharing her expertise. It was great to hear from you. I hope folks will stick around and join us for a short reception in the lobby hosted by Planning, Development, and Research. And our next regular scheduled meeting is for October 4th at 10:30 a.m. We are adjourned.